Okay, so on the traffic analysis, if you are seeing 0 inquiries, then there's probably a perception issue, a perceived value issue for what you are marketing, what you're listing your property for, the amount that you're asking for compared to probably its address or maybe the photos that you're showing, something in the advertisement. But whatever it is, it's not catching the attention of renters. So there's a couple things that you can do to work on that, and we'll discuss that in a moment. Another potential situation you may be running into is you're getting the inquiries, but then once they talk to you or once they, you respond to them and so forth, they're not scheduling those tours. And again, this is a perceived value issue. Your advertising could be off. There could be something in your advertising which it may not even be on purpose, but the people looking at it may think it's one thing, and then when they talk to you or get information from you, it turns out it's something different, so they don't want to schedule that tour. Another situation is when property tours are scheduled and then there's a high no-show rate. To me, I always look at what's going on with the property physically at that point, because a lot of times what tenants will or renters will do before they go to the tour is drive by the property and take a look at it and things along those lines. They like to see as much as possible even before they schedule the tour a lot of times, but I've had a lot of times where they'll schedule the tour and then they'll drive by and then they just don't show. It could be a property issue, and again, it could be that some of those people are just the people you don't want anyway, not being very reliable for you. And if they're not reliable to show up for an appointment or to skip an appointment without giving you a heads up, the courtesy of a heads up that they're not going to be there, then they're not the type of renter or tenant that you want anyway. And then there is the property tours. You're getting property tours, you're scheduling, they're showing up, and the applications just aren't coming in. And really that's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue with the property as it relates to the price. Something's out of balance there. What they're seeing and how they feel about the property in their mind isn't justifying the price that you're asking. So there's a couple things you can do about that as well. So to some of the resolutions of some of those things, again, this is a balancing act, and it's between the product and the price. Now, you can adjust the price. Typically when you're trying to get it rented, usually those adjustments mean you're adjusting down a little bit. Or you can actually resolve the property issue, and it could be something you're very well aware of. It could be an eyesore, it could be an exterior condition issue, it could be landscaping, curb appeal type issue. You can resolve that and see what that does in terms of solving your issues. Now, when you're thinking about whether or not to adjust price or deal with the property issue itself, what you're going to want to do is do a cost-benefit analysis. So, figure up the total price of what it's going to cost for you to resolve that issue, figure up the total adjustment in rent that you would lose if you move the rent down, see which one's going to cost you more. I will say that the worse shape a property is in, it tends to, if somebody is willing to accept a property that's in poor condition, they may not always be the best renters for you. So there is that factor to take into consideration as well. Now, when we decide that a rent adjustment is appropriate, I personally like to work with the pricing thresholds. I've been doing this long enough to know that there are certain thresholds to where it does open up a whole new group of renters for you. And if one thing I don't want to do, the vacancy loss can eat you up in this situation. So I don't want to decrease it by $5 or $10 and wait another week or 2 weeks. By the time you get down to the point where a new group of people are available to you as renters, you've lost a month or 2 months of vacancy. So I like to do the threshold approach. And what I've noticed over the years is that typically it's about those $25 marks. So if it rents at $13.95 or taking down to $13.75 or $13.50 or $13.25, it's at those points, if it starts at $14.25 and then you have to drop down, get it under that $1,400 mark. But there's $95, $75, $50, and $25 marks are generally what I have noticed that open up new groups of renters for you to show your property to. And once again, before you decide to make that adjustment, just do the cost benefit on it. what is the potential loss of reducing your rent versus the expected vacancy. And again, some of this is estimation. I mean, you really have to just kind of guess on how long it'll take for you to rent. The more times you rent the property, the better feel you'll get for that. I mean, if you've had it 2, 3, 4 years and rented it a couple times, you're going to know if it leases quick, or if it leases if it takes a month or two to lease. And the higher the price, typically the longer theoretically it should take to lease, because I mean your market dwindles some. Okay, so let's do a quick lesson recap here. Market rent is what a potential renter is willing to pay for a property at any given time. This is going to be dependent on the conditions, the market conditions, and the 3 Ps, which is price, product, and placement, or location. Again, use the tools, the 1%, the rent estimator, and the market surveys, along with the analysis of your traffic as well, to zero in on if your market rent is set at the correct rate. And then we can adjust those rent rates we can resolve those issues by adjusting rent rates or resolving the property issue itself, but make sure to do the cost benefit analysis of that. Okay, some resources I'm going to leave you with here. I'm going to leave you with some links to rent estimation services, a couple links to find so you can find your property comps. I'm going to include a sample of the property comp grid worksheet so you can download it and use that for yourself. And that will wrap us up for this lesson. This is Jason with the 11-Minute Landlord, and we will see you next time.